Welcome back to Untold Revenge Files. Today, the story you're about to hear takes place in Creston, Pennsylvania. My name is Mia. I'm 28 years old, and I'm about to tell you how the man I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with destroyed me in front of everyone we knew, and why that turned out to be the greatest gift he ever gave me. For 3 years, I loved Ethan Brooks with everything I had. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue, and from the first conversation, I felt like I'd known him my whole life. He was charming, attentive, and had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the room. By month 6, we'd moved in together. By year 2, we'd opened a joint savings account, our future fund, he called it, where we'd deposit money for the wedding, the house, the life we were building together. I was an accountant at a mid-sized firm, putting in long hours, picking up extra clients whenever I could. Meanwhile, Ethan worked in sales, which meant unpredictable schedules, late nights, work trips that seemed to pop up at the last minute. I never questioned any of it. Why would I? I trusted him completely. Looking back, I can see the cracks now, moments that should have made me pause. The way he'd get irritated when I suggested quiet weekends at home, how he'd roll his eyes whenever I talked about saving money instead of splurging. The subtle comments about how I was too practical or no fun anymore. But I told myself every couple had their differences. I told myself love was about compromise. I didn't realize I was the only one compromising. The night everything changed was Marcus's engagement party. Marcus was a colleague of Ethan's, and the party was at this upscale venue downtown. Fairy lights everywhere, champagne towers, the works. I'd spent 3 hours getting ready, wearing a dress Ethan had picked out for me months earlier. I remember feeling beautiful that night, hopeful. I thought maybe this would inspire Ethan to finally talk about our own future. Before I tell you exactly what Ethan did next, tell me, what time is it where you are right now, and where are you watching from? I'm really curious to see how far this story will travel. The party was in full swing when it happened. We were standing near the center of the room, surrounded by at least 40 people. Colleagues, friends, some people I'd never even met. Someone had made a toast about love and commitment, and a few people started looking at us, smiling, clearly wondering if we were next. That's when Ethan's expression changed. It was like watching a mask slip. His jaw tightened. His eyes went cold. And then, loud enough for everyone to hear, he said the words that would echo in my head for weeks. "You'd never be a good wife. I'm not marrying you." Time stopped. I felt the blood drain from my face. The room went silent. That horrible, crushing kind of silence where you can feel everyone's eyes burning into you. Someone gasped. A glass clinked against a table. My chest tightened so hard, I thought I might collapse. I searched his face for something. Remorse. Maybe a sign that he was joking. Anything. But there was nothing. Just cold indifference. Like I was a stranger he'd already forgotten. My throat closed. My hands started shaking. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to defend myself, to demand an explanation, to ask him why he would humiliate me like this. But something deeper, something quieter, told me not to give him that satisfaction. Not here. Not in front of all these people. So I stared at him, long and hard. Then I turned around and walked out. The drive home was a blur. I don't remember the traffic or the stoplights or even parking the car. I just remember sitting in the driveway, engine still running, replaying that moment over and over. His voice, the look on his face, the whispers starting as I walked away. My phone buzzed. Then again. I ignored it. I couldn't talk to anyone. Not yet. But then around 11 that night, a text came through that made my stomach drop all over again. It was from Natalie, Ethan's close friend from college, someone I'd gotten to know over the years. We were best friends, but we were friendly. Friendly enough that her message surprised me. It said, "Do you even know what happened after you left?" My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Part of me didn't want to know. Part of me was terrified of what she might say. But a bigger part of me, the part that was done being blindsided, knew I had to find out. I called her. I had no idea that what Natalie would tell me next would finally break me and change everything. Natalie answered on the second ring. Her voice was low, almost conspiratorial, like she was hiding somewhere at the party. "Mia, I'm so sorry," she started. "What he did to you was horrible, but there's more. You need to know what happened after you walked out." I gripped the phone tighter. "Just tell me." She took a breath. "After you left, Ethan just broke down. He went outside, sat on the patio, and put his head in his hands. I thought maybe he realized what he'd done. But then Ryan came out. Ryan, Marcus's younger brother. I knew him vaguely. Quiet, good-looking, always hovering near Ethan at these events. I'd never thought much of it. Ryan sat next to him," Natalie continued, her voice tense. "And the way he comforted him, Mia, it wasn't friendly. It was intimate. He had his arm around Ethan. Their foreheads were touching, and Ryan was whispering something to him. I got closer because something felt off, and I heard Ryan say, 'You said you were going to end it clean.' The words hit me like ice water. 'What?' I confronted Ethan right there," Natalie said. "I asked him what was going on. He tried to brush it off at first, but I wouldn't let him. And then he admitted it. Mia, he's been seeing Ryan for about 2 months. The phone almost slipped from my hand. 2 months, while we lived together, while I deposited money into our future fund, while I trusted him with everything." "I thought you deserved to know," Natalie finished softly. "I'm so sorry." After we hung up, I sat in complete stillness for what felt like hours. My mind was racing, but my body was frozen. 2 months, all those late nights, the work trips, the way he'd been pulling away, making me feel like I was the problem. And then, like a reflex, I reached for my laptop, our joint savings account, the future fund. I logged in and started scrolling through the recent transactions. What I found made my hands shake all over again. There it was, a dinner at an upscale steakhouse downtown, a place Ethan had never taken me. Another dinner at an Italian restaurant I'd never heard of. And then the final blow, a charge for a boutique hotel, a 4-star boutique hotel 40 minutes outside of the city. He'd used our money, our future, to fund his affair. I screenshot everything, every charge, every date. I saved them in a folder on my phone labeled Proof. Not because I planned to do anything with it, not yet, but because I needed to know I wasn't crazy. I needed evidence that this was real. If someone you trusted completely had been lying to your face for months, spending your shared savings on someone else, what would you do? Would you wait for an explanation? Or would you already know everything you needed to know? Ethan came home around 1 in the morning. He stumbled through the door like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just detonated my entire life in front of dozens of people. "Mia?" He seemed surprised to see me sitting in the living room, lights off, laptop open on the coffee table. "Sit down," I said. My voice was steadier than I expected. He must have heard something in my tone because he actually listened. He sat across from me, his eyes wary. "Natalie called me," I said flatly. "She told me about Ryan." His face went pale. "Mia, let me explain." And then I checked our account. I turned the laptop toward him. "Steakhouse, Italian restaurant, a boutique hotel, Ethan. You used our money." He stared at the screen, then looked away, his jaw clenched. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." Silence. A long, suffocating silence. Finally, he spoke. "I was looking for something. Excitement. Something different. Ryan just happened." "Excitement," I repeated, the word bitter on my tongue. "You humiliated me in front of everyone we know, lied to me for months, stole from our future, for excitement." He ran a hand through his hair. "I was going to tell you. I just didn't know how. You're going to move out." My voice cut through his excuses like a blade. "Tonight, tomorrow, I don't care, but you're not staying here." "Mia, come on." He tried to argue. He tried to explain. He even tried to cry, but I was finished. I'd spent 3 years giving him my trust, my loyalty, my love, and this was what he'd done with it. That night, he slept on the couch. The next day, he was gone. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and a hollow feeling in my chest. But underneath the pain, there was something else, something that felt almost like relief. For the first time in months, I didn't have to wonder why I felt so alone in my own relationship. I didn't have to question my instincts anymore. I was done being the only one who tried. It was time to start choosing myself. The weeks that followed were the hardest of my life. I won't pretend otherwise. There were nights I couldn't sleep, mornings I couldn't eat, moments where the grief of what I thought I'd had would crash over me like a wave. But slowly, painfully, I started to rebuild. The first thing I did was block Ethan, then Ryan. I didn't need either of them popping up in my notifications, offering excuses or explanations I hadn't asked for. I also closed the joint account, what little was left in it, and opened one in my name only. I threw myself into work. I volunteered for extra projects, took on a new client roster, and started networking with people I'd been too busy to connect with before. My manager noticed. She started including me in meetings I'd never been invited to before. Within 2 months, I was promoted to senior accountant. But it wasn't just about work. I signed up for a pottery class, something I'd always wanted to try but never had the time for. I started walking every evening, clearing my head, rediscovering what it felt like to be alone with my own thoughts. I rekindled friendships I'd neglected while I was so focused on building a life with Ethan. One night, about 6 weeks after everything fell apart, I got dinner with Natalie. She'd become a real ally through all of this, someone who had nothing to gain from telling me the truth, but told me anyway. "You look different," she said, studying me across the table. "Lighter somehow." I smiled. "I feel different. I didn't realize how much energy I was spending trying to keep someone who didn't want to be kept." She nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, I think Ethan knows he messed up. He's been telling people you overreacted, that you didn't give him a chance to explain." She rolled her eyes. "But Marcus told me Ryan dumped him 2 weeks ago, called him just a fling, said he wasn't looking for anything serious." I let that sink in. Ethan had blown up our entire relationship, publicly humiliated me for someone who saw him as nothing more than a temporary thrill. "He tried to call Marcus to apologize," Natalie continued. "Apparently he wanted to reconnect with the friend group. Marcus told him he wasn't interested." Wow. Yeah, turns out people don't like liars. She raised her glass. "To karma. If the person who broke your heart came crawling back only after their new fling rejected them, would you even want to hear what they had to say? Or would their timing tell you everything you needed to know?" The months continued to pass. I kept my head down and focused on my own growth. I didn't stalk Ethan's social media. I didn't ask mutual friends for updates. I just lived. And life started getting good again. I got my own apartment, a small 1-bedroom with big windows and a reading nook that got afternoon sun. I decorated it exactly how I wanted, without compromising for anyone else's taste. I adopted a cat named Oliver, who had no opinion about my practicality or lack of excitement, and loved me unconditionally anyway. Around month 4, I heard through the grapevine that Ethan had been let go from his job. Apparently, his performance had been slipping for a while, and without the affair to distract him, the cracks had become impossible to hide. His sales numbers dropped, his attitude suffered. Eventually, his manager called him in, and that was that. Knowing that should have felt like justice. Instead, it just felt neutral. I didn't celebrate his failures, but I didn't mourn them either. He'd made his choices. Now he was living with them. The person I was becoming had no room for bitterness. I was too busy building a life I was actually proud of. One Saturday afternoon, I was at a farmer's market, picking out tomatoes for a recipe I wanted to try, when I ran into Marcus, Ethan's former colleague. the one whose engagement party had been ground zero. He looked uncomfortable when he saw me. "Mia, hey." "Hi, Marcus." I kept my voice neutral, polite. "Listen, I'm sorry about everything that happened at my party. I had no idea about any of it." "It wasn't your fault." He shook his head. "Still, you deserved better than that." He paused, then added, "For what it's worth, no one thinks what Ethan did was okay. A lot of people have distanced themselves from him." I nodded slowly. We parted ways, and I continued my shopping. But something about that interaction stayed with me. I'd spent so long worrying about what people thought, whether they believed Ethan's version, whether I'd been painted as the villain. But the truth had a way of surfacing. I didn't have to defend myself. I just had to keep living. 6 months after that night at the party, I barely recognized the woman I'd become. Not because I was unrecognizable, but because I finally felt like myself again, maybe more myself than I'd ever been. My career was thriving. I'd just been offered a team lead position at the firm, overseeing a small group of junior accountants. My evenings were filled with pottery classes and book clubs and long phone calls with friends who actually showed up for me. I'd even started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee dates and casual dinners with people who made me laugh. I was happy, genuinely, unshakably happy. And that's when Ethan came back. It started with a text. Unblocking him had been an accident. I'd been cleaning out my phone contacts and must have tapped the wrong button. But there it was, one Thursday evening. "Mia, I know I have no right to ask, but can we talk? I've been doing a lot of thinking. I made the biggest mistake of my life." I stared at the message for a long time. 6 months ago, a text like that would have sent me spiraling. Hope and hurt tangled together until I couldn't tell them apart. But now, I just felt tired. Not angry, not vindictive, just tired of carrying anything that had to do with him. I didn't respond that night, or the next day, but on Saturday morning, I finally replied. "You can call me this evening, 7 p.m. At exactly 7, my phone rang. "Mia." His voice sounded different, smaller. "Thank you for answering. What do you want, Ethan?" A pause. "I want to apologize. Really apologize. What I did to you, at the party with Ryan, all of it, there's no excuse. I was selfish. I was lost, and I took it out on you." I listened without interrupting. "I've been going to therapy," he continued, "trying to figure out why I sabotage good things. And every session, I keep coming back to you, what we had, what I threw away. And what exactly are you asking for?" "A second chance." His voice cracked. "I know I don't deserve it, but I miss you, Mia. I miss us." There it was, the thing I'd thought I wanted to hear, back when I was still bleeding from what he'd done. The apology, the regret, the plea to come back. And I felt nothing. Not triumph, not satisfaction. Just a quiet certainty that this chapter was already closed. "Ethan," I said slowly, "I appreciate the apology. I hope therapy is helping you, but I'm not coming back." "Mia, please. You didn't just cheat on me. You humiliated me in front of everyone we knew. You lied to my face for months. You used our shared future to pay for dates with someone else. And you only reached out after Ryan rejected you." I kept my voice steady, calm. "I'm not your second choice. I'm not your backup plan. That's not what this is. It's exactly what this is." He was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick. "I really messed up, didn't I?" "Yeah," I said softly. "You did. After everything you've heard, if you were standing where I am now, with an ex who finally wanted you back after losing everyone else, would you open that door one more time and call it forgiveness? Or would you keep walking forward and call it self-respect?" For me, the answer was clear. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Ethan. I really do. But it's not me. Not anymore." We hung up, and as I set the phone down, I realized I wasn't shaking. My heart wasn't racing. I just felt peaceful. Like I'd finally set down a weight I didn't even know I was still carrying. The truth is, some people come into your life to teach you what you don't want. Ethan taught me that loyalty shouldn't be one-sided, that love shouldn't make you smaller, that trusting someone doesn't mean ignoring every red flag they wave. But more than that, he taught me what I was worth, not because he valued me, but because he didn't. I deserved someone who would never dream of humiliating me in public, someone who would never lie to my face while sharing my bed, someone who chose me first, not last. And until that person came along, I was more than enough on my own. These days, I don't think about Ethan much. When I do, it's not with anger or sadness, just a distant kind of gratitude. Gratitude that he showed me who he was before I married him. Gratitude that I had the strength to walk away. Gratitude that his cruelty became the catalyst for the best version of myself. If there's one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this. The people who betray you do not get to decide your ending. You do. You always do. And sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's just becoming so full of peace, so rooted in your own worth, that the people who hurt you couldn't shake you if they tried. I'm Mia, and I'm still writing my story. And that's Mia's story. A woman who stood in a crowded room and heard the man she loved tell everyone she'd never be good enough. A woman who discovered the betrayal ran deeper than she ever imagined. Secret dinners, hotel rooms, and a hidden relationship funded by their shared dreams. But instead of breaking, she rebuilt. She didn't scream, she didn't beg. She didn't chase someone who never deserved her in the first place. She simply walked away and became everything he said she couldn't be. Sometimes the people who try to break you end up being the reason you finally find yourself. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever been publicly humiliated by someone you trusted? How did you handle it? Your story might help someone else going through the same thing right now. If Mia's story hit close to home, if it made you feel seen, or angry, or hopeful, smash that like button. It tells the algorithm this story matters. Hit subscribe and turn on all notifications so you never miss a new story. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that walking away isn't weakness, it's power. And if you haven't already, check out this video right here. It's another story you're not going to want to miss. Until next time, protect your peace, know your worth, and never let anyone make you feel small. This is Untold Revenge Files. We'll see you in the next one.